Alright, I've got a couple of these to go through. Trying to be very careful here. Okay, and this one is... Oh, there we go. Okay. Given. I do believe I got that on DVD Blu-ray. Devil's Candy. Interesting. And we've got a holiday sale, I think. Put those up there while I come over here. Okay. Excuse me, it's almost like I've been eating beef stew. Okay, I'm gonna put that here. Okay, neither of these are hentai, okay. But next up we've got a little bigger fish. It was higher up. Okay. Let's get this out. These out. Okay. So that. And then last but not least, we've got this. It's a lot of stuff. So at the top here we have Love Live Superstar, which I don't think I have. The New Me Begins Now? I don't know. Regions A and B, English dub. Sorry, brain is all thinking and stuff. I'll have to talk about that in a later section. Because we're getting into the anime here. It's disc 2, so disc 1 is underneath this. This is the postcard. But pretty. Next up we have Sherlock Hound on Blu-ray, which is known for being a work that Hayao Miyazaki worked on before he went on to form Studio Ghibli. And you can really see it in the character designs. It's got his trademarks. Nice underneath the slipcover. That looks like English dub is on there. I'm not seeing anything that's... Oh, there we go. Region A. All 26 episodes now in HD. Yeah, because it's not SD on BD. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we can invert the cover to look like the cover if we desire. Next up we have Urusei Yatsura, Always My Darling, which is yet another movie. I forget the numbering to name mappings. I'm tempted to say this is movie 6, because movie 5 was like the final chapter, but final chapter wasn't the final chapter, and then this one was more. But I don't know if I'm remembering correctly. Region A, is an English dub. If you thought Taru was a dog before, you haven't seen anything yet. Okay, yeah. So, it was different underneath the slipcover, but if you want invertible cover, pretty cool. Fruits Basket, the final season. This should be... Okay, yeah, more those. There we go. I'm looking for a place to begin taking the plastic off. I don't think this is all of it. I thought this was only like part 1. So we got regions A and B, English dub. This will take a little bit of taking apart, especially since I'm not planning to put this all back in. I took out, oh no, there is a 2 postcards, art book, and that's mostly art, so it lives up to its name. I do believe that's everything out there. That one we'll figure out because I don't think I'll be tossing that one. And then here's where we have our collectible stones of the different zodiac animals, which appears to contain cat. Or dog. Continue your collection with final season. This just says the final season. Does this mean 8-13 plus special features, 7. Okay. And a memento. Yeah, I know this was only here the other week, but I think it's time to see, because I did put the prelude in here, but it doesn't look like there's room for the prelude. Having trouble grabbing this. There is room for this, and then there's a little bit of room there for an art book, which is probably what they actually intend. So I don't think the Fruits Basket Prelude is intended to go in there. Well, that's pretty cool. And then we have this, which I never finished opening. I guess because I sensed there was some glue here. Okay. Oh, it's one of these things. This one's actually pretty cool looking. My only issue is that there's nothing protective over it. So that has to stay protected, I think. Next up, we have Cat's Eye, the complete second season on Blu-ray. I remember when Cat's Eye was one of the rare anime. Because, and I don't know if season 2 was ever released on that rare collection. Maybe it got released on DVD here. Japanese with English subtitles. Will the real Cat's Eye please stand up? We're going to have a problem here. Got all those. But this is not a reversible cover, so you've got a permanently different slipcover and cover, which fine by me. And next up we have the complete 4th season. Symphogear AXZ AXZ. Yeah. Very intense. Kind of funny. What will light the way to your future? Japanese with English subtitles, region A. And, you know, the longer version, the cover art. Pretty cool. Alright. Then we have Princess Principal. Is that a season 2? That's really tiny. Chapter 2. Okay, that says Chapter 2. I don't pretend to be able to read the rest of this. I'll have to figure that out tomorrow when I'm posting this video. Technically today. Region A. English dub. Yeah. Great Expectations and Chapter 2. Whew. And now this pile is getting pretty tall, but last but not least, we have the Irregular at Magic High School Reminisce arc. I'm trying to think if I watched this on Crunchyroll or not. Maybe I considered it. Okay, but you know, taking a look. We have here a quick little information booklet. Smart, and then we have the singular disc. So pretty straightforward, simple release, but always nice when more stuff comes out and gets added to the collection. Alright, well, here's this week's anime DVD collection update. So as you can expect, Pokemon took up a whole lot of my attention. So let's see, of the anime I watched. Spy Family, episode 22, a pretty fun episode, I would say. I also feel like it's hinting closer to stuff that's probably more relevant to the wrapping up of this season and its main goal. Still continuing on with a character that was introduced more in detail, at least in the previous episode. Maybe we saw them an episode or two before that. Pretty good. Beast Tamer, episode 10. Some of the stuff in there kinda doesn't make sense, but it's whatever. Beast Tamer continues to be a show with nice-ish kind of characters, kind of curious where it's going to go, but I do feel like I'm a little on autopilot watching that one. Bocce the Rock, episode 9. Fun episode. Just a fun episode, I would say. Chainsaw Man, episode 8. It was a continuation of where episode 7 was doing that thing. And, I don't know. It's okay. I guess I don't quite like where it was going near the end of that. It's not to say that it's bad and the wrong thing by any objective standard. I guess for me, it just sort of feels like the show is not exactly jerking around, but it is kind of jerking maybe in different directions unexpectedly. At least it feels that way. Like, I don't know. To a certain degree, it's like, oh, well, I guess that's surprising, but at the same time, does it feel like watching this has paid off? Well, yes and no. And so I'm not sure what to think about it. I'll just have to see where it goes from there. but I do know that it's not sitting perfectly on my stuff. To Your Eternity. So I think what I had talked about was maybe kind of sort of the case where maybe one of the episodes was delayed because of Thanksgiving and people probably dubbing it, being here in the United States and, you know, getting a break on Thanksgiving. But I say that, but 2 episodes came out, dubbed episodes came out over the weekend, and I have to say, well, I agree with one spoiler comment that I didn't read the actual spoiler part, but I did see that somebody said, Jesus fucking Christ, and that's, yes, that is, because from a storytelling perspective, our minds are wandering at this point. And if you have been putting off starting season 2, I'd say if you were interested in season 1 and curious about where it might be going, season 2 is just proving to continue to be surprisingly good. Even though there's things in there, it's like, what's with this? I don't know how I feel this is going, but it's managing to go in surprisingly to your eternity directions. It feels like, you know, the good stuff. So my Friday friend is back from his trip, so we started watching our next thing, which is continuing My Hero Academia, because season 6 is airing right now, or maybe it finished airing and the dub is still coming out right now. Either way, there are dub episodes for us to watch, so we're starting to slowly catch up on that. We only watched 4 episodes, and that would be the 2 OVA episodes for season 5, which were whatever. Yeah, whatever. I don't even remember what the second OVA episode was even about right now. But then season 6 proper, I have to give it total props. Again, My Hero Academia as a series continues to behave very well. Because if there's one fear going into a series that's this many seasons in, it's like, is it going to be finding something to waste my time with? And no, it's actually doing very relevant stuff right here, right now. Like, it's not treating the stuff that happened at the end of this previous season as just some, oh my god, this is super important, but we have all the time in the world, we don't have to care. No, it's a continuing narrative right from where it left off. It's almost like there wasn't a break in the seasons, which is pretty good. I mean, if somebody needed a chance to warm back up, that could be an issue, but 5 seasons into My Hero Academia, and hopefully you wouldn't be. So, some pretty good anime there. And then Reincarnated as a Sword, episode 8. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So the way episode 7 ended, I was kind of unsure what episode 8 was going to be like, but I actually really liked episode 8. And this gets back to one of those things that this show has to juggle very carefully, and that's, you know, our titular character was the person reincarnated as a sword, and he's become a pretty kick-ass sword, even though he's kind of got his doubts about how kick-ass he is, and we're not sure, but there's this back and forth and stuff that's interesting that does happen, even if it's a little bit slow. But on the other side of that, he's a sword intending to be wielded by a person, and we want that person to be special in some way. And this is an episode that really allows our main character's wielder, our titular character's wielder, so Fran, to just stand out really well. Like, the aspects of her personality and attitude that have made her so adorable, lovable, great to watch are out in full force. And at the same time, the show's showing that it's not like, oh, it's only him, the sword. Because to a certain degree, she has to be getting better, interesting, noteworthy. Even if the show establishes that maybe some of that stuff would suffer if she ever lost possession of him or something like that. Like, there's this part of my mind that's like, well, what happens when they slay the big bad and something happens to him and he's no longer there and she has to get another sword? What happens to her after that? And while nothing in the show's ever answered any of that, that's part of the reason why it's important for us as the audience to see that our main character is being legitimately cool. And like I said, it feels like it's gone a little back and forth on that, but stayed right around the correct area. And this episode is one that really allows Fran to just shine. You can feel that she isn't just, oh, I'm going to be a hero because the sword is telling me, or anything like that. You can kind of feel her as a character just being really great and fun in her Fran way. So, highly appreciate episode 8. And it took me until I started talking about it here to even remember that. So, other watch things, Rick and Morty, let's see, a funny enough episode. I appreciate the fact that this episode could have very easily been one of those, everything just built into this over-the-top thing, because it was over-the-top, but it was over-the-top in a way that doesn't exhaust you per se. It's kind of centered around one joke and a fun callback for all intents and purposes, but it's a fun romp. It's kind of a, this doesn't make sense, but that's kind of funny. It's doing its own funny thing. And I have other thoughts about it, but I don't want to talk about those because those would be spoiler. All right, all that stuff. What about Pokemon? So, Pokemon Violet, there was the Charizard raid. I guess it's going to come back, isn't it? Well, that's kind of good because, I think a lot of people kind of understood this is what you're supposed to do for Charizard. I think the thing that everybody was planning ahead of time involved using an Azumarill because huge power and play rough with belly drum properly supported just absolutely deals a massive amount of damage. But for those of you who tinkered in it only a little bit, did it, and didn't understand what was going on, there's a bug with play rough, where the amount of damage dealt is well defined, but for some reason the display for the health doesn't work right. So it looks like you do about twice as much damage as you actually did, or something like that. And a lot of people have misinterpreted what this might mean, what the causes are, but I think it's been pretty consistently proven that it's play rough because it also shows up to lesser extents in other battles. But this is the one where it's just like people were focusing on it. A lot of people were doing it. Some people thought, oh, well, now, if it gets below a certain point, it has to jump back up in order for the shield to come up. The shield mechanics don't work that way. Maybe it's something wrong with huge power. People have found out, again, that it's happening with play rough, even without huge power. I don't think it happens when you have huge power, belly drum, liquefy Azumarill hitting the Pokemon. So, that pretty much leaves there's some sort of annoying bug with play rough. And as more people, I think, got to transition into raiding seriously, myself included, understanding how to take on these high-level raids, participate in them, and do them, oh my god, this is the closest this game gets to being unplayable, I think. Outside of, some people have experienced glitches where they have lost their save. Their data got corrupted or something like that. And there's definitely some design problem at issue here. Probably the main one being that, just like the Sword Shield raids, your display will disappear in order to show something important happening. But it's kind of a real problem because it keeps taking away your input, putting back, taking away, putting back, sometimes resetting you unexpectedly and putting it back. So instead of your attack defaulting to whatever attack you attacked with last, it's at the beginning and you accidentally just used the wrong attack. And the back and forth can go there, and it takes it so long to sync up. And I think part of the syncing problem is that, like when somebody heals everybody with like a heal cheer or with life dew or something like that, on everybody's side, everybody's health just goes up all at the same time. But on the person who casts it, it does it for boom, boom, one person at a time, and not even as fast as I just did it right there. And I think that causes the game to kind of have to pause and say, hold on, I have to let all this stuff catch up. And some of the out of order stuff is fine, makes sense, but it's bad game design to really keep taking away the user's input through no fault of their own. This could be because their allies managed to get their attacks in faster, and the raid Pokemon is already putting up its shield and clearing statuses. But when 5 things happen and you're sitting there for 30 seconds unable to do anything until finally the game's like, oh, yeah, okay, now tell me what you want to do. Then your input pops up, but you're back at square one and you're hoping that you're getting in there quick enough. Which usually at that point you can, because a lot of battle time has been used up by doing that. So that's a problem. But when it comes to having raid Pokemon, because the raids exist and they are kind of easy to get into, granted it's hard to get into the very specific ones. With the Charizard, it's really easy to get into a Charizard one, because the way it works is when you say I want to join something, it doesn't say, alright, I'm sending you to the one created by that specific person. It says, alright, I'm going to add you to any of the ones that meet that criteria. It's that Pokemon with that stars with that typing, with that Terra type. And Charizard was great because all three of those were fixed. So if you select one of those, you probably don't make it to the one that caused it to appear on your board, but you made it to the 50th that was created after that. So you're always getting in these Charizard raids because eventually you'd fall back. And the idea behind this, this can be done if there's a specific Pokemon you absolutely need to get. You're like, this is the one that I know how to fight. I need to fight one of these. You can just choose not to refresh and keep selecting that. And once the game gives somebody else that Pokemon with that star mount and that Terra type, you just join. Which is kind of neat. Unfortunately, it kind of suggests that they should probably give something that allows you to maybe signify what you're actually looking for. And part of the reason they don't do that is because they want to be able to fill in stuff other than the really great stuff that people are really going for. You know, they want to give other people who are maybe further back a chance. And so one thing you can do, if you just don't care about it, you just want to get in there and do raids, and sometimes do the 6 stars, the 5 stars, deal with or accept the 4 stars, roll your eyes, but say whatever for 3 stars or below. You can choose a random thing, and while sometimes it fails to make you join the thing that you told it you wanted to join, for the most part you join something and you just get in there and do something. And so as long as you have a plan, you have a good plethora of Pokemon to fall back on and try different strategies, you seem to be okay. And I've trained up maybe 1.5 level 100 Pokemon, not all of which are very well suited for this, but there's a variety in there. And I'm especially focusing a lot more on support Pokemon, because I'm finding that people out there really need people who just have a variety of support options and ideas. Someone to throw that reflect up against a physical attacker, so that the person who brought the frail Pokemon that's weak to one of its types maybe lasts a bit longer. Somebody to focus on, alright, now's when we heal. There's a lot of statuses all around. We need to clear statuses. If the Pokemon that you're facing is a special attacker, Blissey is just like an all-around really neat Pokemon, for example. And I prefer Blissey to Chansey, because while Chansey can get those higher stats, that's a little overkill. And you are, I would say you are better off going with Blissey and having the light clay that keeps your light screen up longer. Because with the light screen and the light clay and Blissey's sky-high special defense, nothing's fucking getting through you. Nothing. It doesn't matter what they do. And it doesn't help the raid Pokemon that Blissey doesn't have much damage output. So usually if you're doing anything in that regard, it's helping hand. Have somebody else do more damage. But in my experience, you don't even necessarily need to do that. If other people are trying to do a lot of damage, and they're just going, and you're just playing constant cleric, you're usually stuck going between Life Dew, since that heals yourself as well. Nobody's going to do any damage to you. Or if you're using Heal Pulse to do more immediate, large-scale healing for one person who's really low, you know, it just works really nice. Blissey's a really good support mon, and I've been liking my support mons. So for Charizard, even though Azumarill was the known thing to go there were issues with going the Azumarill route. Most likely, people were running the Covet Cloak in order to prevent the secondary effects from its attacks. But you still needed more than that, maybe, because even if you had 4 Azumarills do that, they could do a lot of damage, but that Charizard could get lucky and just knock enough people down, especially if people have terastallized because he cleared your stats and your belly drums are all gone and nobody has the ability to heal up fast enough. And then he uses a sunny day, and if you have terrestrialized into the fairy type, you're no longer resisting Fire Blast. Fire Blast can now one-hit KO you. And that can be kind of rough. So the real exploitable thing about Charizard that people discovered is because Charizard begins with Overheat, loses 2 things of special attack, and it immediately resets his negative stats. Apparently, these Pokemon are only allowed to do that once per match, which means any stat down you do to him after that point are permanent for the remainder of the raid. Unless somebody else deliberately comes along and reverses it for some reason. Or for somehow. Either or. The 2 strategies that came out that I think have been a lot more successful, one of them involves either using, I forget the name of that Paradox Pokemon from Pokemon Scarlet, but you either use that, and that one's apparently really good at it, and the close second is Sylveon, where the basic idea is, again, Covert Cloak in order to prevent shenanigans from secondary effects of moves, but you fake Tears the Charizard so that he has just absolutely no special defense anymore, and then you hit him with Moon Blast, or with Sylveon with a pixelated, I was going to say Hyper Beam, but I think Hyper Beam would probably not be the best idea. You'll do a ton of damage, but then you'll be recovering. Probably fine, you'll win the raid, but most likely you're using Hyper Voice, which pixelated turns into a fairy type, which becomes 20% higher damage than what it had before, which makes it a higher damage move than Moonblast. So that's getting the most out of there. And then you also have Drain Kiss, so that, in theory, because the Charizard doesn't have any special defense, you were doing a shit ton of damage to him with Drain Kiss, and even with its lower attack power, you should be healing back enough to either be hard to kill or to completely heal yourself up. So, all good, but I think the support mon that everybody started realizing, first of all, I don't even know what this is on the ground that I'm playing with, sorry. So Sylveon could form, could do some of this, but I think people started realizing Grimmsnarl was good, and that's what I ended up using the most, because Grimmsnarl is kind of the, okay, I've accepted the fact that I'm not the one that's going to be doing damage, because all 3 of these other people brought Pokemon. Some of them even brought belly drummers. Iron Hand is a very popular one. I don't know that too many of them brought that to Charizard, because I think everybody trained up Azumarill for that, or Sylveon. So with Grimmsnarl, the idea is you're playing almost 100% support Pokemon with, you're taking advantage of Prankster and the fact that you can just set up, stuff just immediately, no matter how fast Charizard is. So you don't need any speed investment, so you can just immediately light screen, and if you're the first person that goes, you're going before Charizard, and immediately all his damage output is cut in half. Then you use Misty Terrain, which deals with it makes it where the secondary effects of Charizard stuff just won't happen. And then you just use Spirit Break. Just keep punching him over and over with Spirit Break. And in my experience, sometimes I get to do that. Usually, when I'm at that point, I've determined, okay, there's Iron Hands in play. Definitely need the Misty Terrain up. But now I absolutely have to heal people. And I hope people slow down enough to at least give me, as the person running support, a chance to make a heal call. Because I play support role a whole lot in here. And I've definitely messed up plenty of times. But at the same time, done fine. A lot of times I've done fine. So against Charizard, I don't think I've ever messed up. I've only ever had one feint, and that was the light screen was down. Because I need to learn how to count how many turns it's been and the light screen needs to be put back up. I'm really bad at that. But in this case, it was sunny day, the light screen was down. Even though I hit him a lot of times with the Spirit Break and his special attack was through the floor, he hit me with a critical hit with a Fire Blast in the sun, vaporized from full health, but then the next Pokemon I attacked finished it off. So I did a good job as a support Pokemon, and I wouldn't call that messing up so much as sometimes the random number generator just hurts you like that. And I've built up other support mons.
I haven't used them all. I've got some weird ones I'm wanting to play with. I just haven't decided, oh yeah, now's the time to try to use this. I've also trained up a couple of Assault Pokemon, but they're kind of hard to use, partially because other people are always using Assault Pokemon, so you really want, if you want to ensure, oh yes, we're going to get this, probably a good idea for you to be the support Pokemon if you've trained up the support team like I have. And I definitely want to train up more support Pokemon for more potential situations. But, you know, I've got other Pokemon in theory for offensive situations when I don't think the enemy's damage output is going to be that big of a problem. I was about to give an example. Anyways, like Scarlet, I think, is an example, but he's tricky because there's a lot of things super effective against him. But if you can pull it up, if you get in a sword dance and hit with his fire stab and it's super effective, you're probably going to heal yourself back faster than you're taking damage, even if it's super effective. Or at least enough such that it's not as big of a problem. Iron Valiant is just kind of tricky. I haven't seen the situation where I'm like, maybe this makes sense to get them in there. And they should play kind of similar to Scarlet. Maybe with similar defensive typing. Maybe. It's really hard to say for certain, but they're cool. They kind of have the same strategy where I think you want to Swords Dance once and then attack the opponent with something that regains health. Kind of cool. But yeah, that's all raid stuff, and as you can see, I'm thinking about it a lot. There's definitely been plenty of times where I've rolled my eyes and said, why are you bringing that kind of Pokemon to this? I know it's super effective against the Terra type, but you're literally going to get obliterated by the Pokemon's original types, because it's going to have attacks of those types, and you can guess that for the vast majority of Pokemon. So, for example, you can guess that Gengar is probably going to have Shadow Ball and Sludge Bomb, or Sludge Wave, either or. So you probably don't want to bring something that's weak to Ghost or Poison, or double weak to one or the other, or both, or anything like that. But, you know, I try to be tolerant of people. That's, I think, why I run Support Mon, is to help the people that are not making quite the optimal decisions maybe get through some of this stuff. Unfortunately, I would need to make more optimal decisions than I think I make for some of these situations in order to do this. And it's really hard to, because the chaotic nature thing, I don't even know how much my helping hand ever actually helps. Like, I don't know if it queues it up, because I didn't see them attack between my helping hand and my menu coming back and letting me do the next thing. Like, there really should be something on the top right corner that just shows a queue of whose attacks are being processed in what order or something like that. But I don't know. Try to help people, and since I'm going random, I'm going to lower level stuff. I'm not immediately, like, I think I was up against a 3-star just a couple of hours ago, and my inclination was to stay back, do some cheering, and if the people there were not able to successfully do it, then I would start attacking and take it down really quick, 1 or 2-shot it. And that's what I ended up doing. You know, 2-shotting it, it was a little bit beefy. Maybe it had, I think it probably stockpiled a lot, and so its special defense was pretty high. But even given all that, it was still 2-hit KO'd, and the idea is, if lower level people are queuing these things up and I'm going in there, then probably the last thing I want to do is make it boring for them. Now, maybe it's not boring for me to one-shot. Maybe they're hoping that people are coming in to one-shot these things, because 3 stars is the highest they get, and they get good experience for it at the level of the game that they're at. That would be fair, but, you know, it's all stuff. I say this, that's clearly where all my thoughts are, because now that I've done all that, my next goal is to start working on Pokemon Scarlet, because, you know, I finished Violet, and so first of all, I wanted the ability to trade with myself in order to evolve a Slowpoke into a Slowking, and looking for starting to play, that seemed the way to go. The main problem I ran into is I thought I understood the changes to the obedience system they had made, but unfortunately there was one additional thing I didn't know. Because like it used to be in the past, your Pokemon has an OT, that's an original trainer value. And yeah, I have to do all that stuff. So they have an original trainer value, and no matter what happens, a Pokemon that has your original trainer value always obeys you. This is what allowed you to, you know, if somebody else sent you one and they were the different original trainer, their Pokemon, if it was too high of a level, would just occasionally disobey you, or as of Generation 5 and on, completely disobey you, if I remember Bulbapedia correctly. And I already knew this game was doing something more. Because of the open world nature of the game, you could get to areas with Pokemon of a higher level than you were supposed to have at that point in the game, and you could catch something there. They didn't make it where it was impossible to catch them, they just made it where it was tougher, but you could still catch them. And then that could, in theory, mean that you catch a super high level Pokemon by throwing like a lucky Ultra Ball at just the right point. And while you can catch a Pokemon doing that, the obey mechanism now also depends on what level you caught the Pokemon at. So if you wanted to trade a Pokemon up to level 35 to obey your commands, you know, that would be the same thing you need to do to have a Pokemon up to level 35 that you caught in the wild obey you no matter what. So the Pokemon between level 30 and 35, at least when you caught it, needs that. And that's pretty difficult. Okay. But okay, fine. So if we take that aside and we say, all right, well, you should still be able to trade your precious, start a Pokemon away, and when it comes back, it still remembers you and still does what you want, what you tell it to do. But they've changed that. So when you trade a Pokemon out and you trade it back, for all intents and purposes, it treats it as an outsider Pokemon, even though you're its original trainer. Which I can understand that they did it, but I feel like it's a little too controlling. And I worry that this means that someone out there has overleveled their precious starter, and then they had a friend that's like, oh yes, let's just trade starters so that we can get credit for it. And then their starter came back and started disobeying them. And that makes me think Nintendo's not thought about how much they're disappointing that person. For me, you know, it's an annoyance. It means that even though I thought I was set up so that like later tonight I would maybe stream and just blitz through all of the gyms or something like that, that's not going to happen. I have to do something with a little more nuance to my preparations, and I'm pretty sure I have a good idea what I'm going to do. I just don't know if I will I just don't know when I'll be completely ready to do it, I guess, so to speak. But, you know, since the idea is a Pokemon traded out and then traded back in has this, oh, it's treated as a traded Pokemon, that still means a Pokemon that you met in your game and you never let leave is still good. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind up some XL candies from Terra Raids. I'm actually thinking 12 of them, and then I'm going to breed a version of the starter, and when I give all 12 of those candies to it, my calculations show that it should be level 70. And at that point, it might be a high enough level to get through all the gyms, and then the other two Pokemon I trained, which includes the starter and a Gardevoir, they should all be obeying me too. So, yeah, that's my plan. That's what I'm going to try to do, I think. I don't know the order that I'm going to try to do all this stuff in. Maybe do. But the truth of the matter is, I do want to blitz through it really quick, and part of the reason I'm going to stream it is because my Twitch friend, who I've played a lot of games with, not as much this last week. Pokemon has been very... Oh, the Charizard raid stuff opened my eyes to what I needed to do in order to get raid Pokemon, And because I'm in a Pokemon engineering mode, I haven't been playing any Dead by Daylight. In fact, I should log on to get my daily Christmas thing. And so I've been falling behind on that a whole lot. Thinking Pokemon, but nonetheless, she played through Violet as well. And while I haven't talked about what I thought about the end of the story, let me just say it this way. It's definitely not flawless, but it was still pretty great. Like, I feel like it had some obvious flaws that kind of like, yeah, I don't think that's the best way to have told that part of the story, but I really appreciate the experience in the story that you're actually giving me, Nintendo. I don't know if Nintendo's the specific one to be given credit for, but again, I highly approved of the ending, and the way the ending worked in Scarlet, I think is probably, well, the way it worked in Violet, I think works better in Violet for that. Scarlet, I have to kind of play through to make sure to see if it has a different feel to it. I kind of am not expecting that one to be super notable or something like that. Like, I expect it to kind of have a slightly off feeling to it. But that'll be okay. I'm going to go through it anyways and find out, you know, what exactly do I prefer between the two games. And now, it may sound like, oh, I'm screwed because I traded 2 Pokemon out. They're level 100. They won't obey me. I'm pretty sure I can still do things with that character. In particular, I can capture more Pokemon, and I can trade over Ditto and do a Ditto breeding. I might not be able to do the Ditto breeding just yet. Instead, that means I send over an egg. And actually, I have a couple of eggs, so I can probably do just that. Then hatch the egg, trade over the items in order to do everything I'm planning to do. Do it all, trade a couple of items back, probably. And then again, my thought is to try to get this one Pokemon to level 70, and it should be able to handle all the Titan Pokemon, so I can get absolutely everywhere. It should be able to handle most of the gyms. There's one gym that I'm kind of thinking about that there could be some iffiness for. But if I aim for the gyms first, aim for the Titan Pokemon in order to get to all of the gyms, then I should be pretty good. And if I didn't aim for the Titan Pokemon first, well, it probably makes the most sense to aim for them anyways, because they should be relatively easy given the setup I've been doing. Yeah. Alright. Lots and lots of stuff. So, there's a very real risk that by the next time we talk, I will not have beaten Pokemon Scarlet. Because I think at this point, my target is probably to try to do it on Sunday. I guess if there's one thing to worry about when it comes to streaming on that day, that's laundry day. But I'll have to figure it out. Otherwise, I'm definitely looking forward to various anime because, again, as I talked about, there's some stuff that I watch, so some stuff that's drifted. So, Villainous Taming the Final Boss. The reason I guess I'm having trouble getting motivated to go into and watch that, it's not only Pokemon, but also because the story took a turn using a story element that kind of I don't care for too much. And while it didn't handle it too badly in the previous episode I watched, it's still one of those things where I just don't want to deal with it, I think. And Irina, I guess I just never got around to putting back on because of Pokemon. Alright. That's everything. Y'all, have a nice week.